Welcome everyone to Insights into the Weekly Haftorah. This week's Torah portion is Yitro, the giving of the Torah, the Ten Commandments. Very obviously important portion. So the question is, what did the sages choose that would parallel the giving of the Torah? The giving of the Torah was a unique experience. It was once in a history revelation of God to the entire Jewish people. And the Jewish people rose to prophetic insight. We're told that the seven heavens opened up, that all of the dimensions merged together, that with every word that God said, their souls left their bodies. Once in a history. So the question is, like, which Haftorah are we going to choose in order to parallel this? So the sages made a very wise choice in the 6th chapter of Isaiah. The 6th chapter of Isaiah is, we're going to see right now, there are many parallels to the giving of the Torah at Sinai and parallels to Moshe and to the prophetic experience that all of Israel experienced, and that an individual, Isaiah, Yeshayahu, experienced. So it begins that he begins by describing a vision that he had. And this vision is very important because it's part of our prayers every Shachrit and Mincha, the entire year. And the quote that we're going to quote here, we actually say it 4 times in Shachrit and once in Mincha. And so the vision I want to mention is that the vision that he's having is similar to the vision Ezekiel had, called the workings of the chariot, Ma'aseh Merkavah. The difference is that Ezekiel was seeing the Merkavah in the world of Yetzirah. And therefore, he was seeing everything in 4s. He saw 4 animals, and they all had 4 faces. And we're not going into the vision of the Merkavah, but if you look in the 1st chapter of Ezekiel, the number 4 comes up over and over again. Here, Isaiah is seeing the Merkavah, but in a higher world, the world of Bria. And he's seeing angels with 6 wings. And he describes it. Ezekiel, his description is very long and detailed. Isaiah's is relatively short, but they're tuned into the same energy. And that's the same energy all of Israel was plugged into at the giving of the Torah. And I should mention that there's one other prophet who also was described his vision of the chariot, and that's Zechariah. And he also explains it in patterns of 4, especially like 4 horses. And he was seeing the chariot, the Merkavah, in the world of Asiyah, in the lowest of the worlds. So Zechariah is seeing the workings of the chariot in the lowest world of action, Yechezkel is seeing it in the world of formation, Yitzira. Yeshayahu is seeing it on the level of Bria. So what is this pasuk that he says that we repeat 4 times? Is he sees these fiery angels. V'kara zeh el zeh v'yamar, and they call out to each other, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakot, Melok ha'la'aretz kavodo. Holy, holy, holy is the God of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory. One of the ways of understanding this is that the first Kadosh is the world of Atzilut. The second is of Bria, the third of Yitzira, and the whole world being full of his glory is the world of Asiyah. So here, actually, Yeshayahu is in a certain way giving over the secret of the chariot in all the different worlds. Now, how do we say that 4 times in Shachrit? So we say it in the introduction to the Shema. We say it in the wait, excuse me 1 second. I meant 4 times in the day, not 4 times in Shachrit. It's 3 times in Shachrit, once in Mincha. The first time, as I said, is the introduction to the Shema. The second is in the repetition of the Amida, where we recite this in what's called Kedusha. The third time is towards the end of prayer in Ba L'Tzion. We say again, Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakot, Melok ha'la'aretz kavodo. And then at Mincha, in the repetition in Kedusha. So we say this 4 times every single day, every day. On Musaf, when we have Musaf, on Shabbat and holidays, it's even another time. It's a 5th time. So, no, I take that back. It's 4 times because we don't say Balat Sion and Shachri. We only say it in Mincha. So it's the same 4 times. Then after Yeshayahu is describing the angels calling one to the other, holy, holy, holy is the God of hosts. Then it says that in his vision, he was like in the temple, and it said it filled with smoke, with ashan. Well, at Har Sinai, it says that the whole mountain was full of smoke. The word ashan is explained ayin shin nun. Ayin is olam, space. Shin is shana, time. Nun is nefesh, soul. Space, time, and soul. And this is what all of Israel experienced at Har Sinai. All of the dimensions merged together, and we had in a certain way, an aliyat neshama. And that's why it says that every word that God spoke, our souls left this world. And we were elevated in a way that never before and never again, as far as all the people simultaneously having this kind of a prophetic experience. So that's hinted to when Yeshayahu says, and the house became filled with smoke. Then Yeshayahu says, he says, like, woe is me. Like I've seen God, and I have uncircumcised lips, and I'm among a people of uncircumcised lips. And an angel comes and takes a coal and touches it to his mouth and says, all of your sins are atoned for. So what does this remind us of? A little bit of Moshe. At the burning bush, he says, I can't speak. I'm not a man of words. I don't know how to speak. And we're told, the Midrash tells us, why can't he speak? Is because when he was being raised in Pharaoh's house, the astrologers thought, maybe this is the Redeemer that we've been seeing in the stars. They said, well, let's give him a test. We'll put a hot coal and we'll put a crown. Let's see which one he goes for. If he goes for the crown, it means he's telling us he's the Redeemer. And if he goes to the coals, it means he's just a child. And so the Midrash says he was actually reaching for the crown, and the angel Gabriel pushed his hand and he touched the coal. He burned his fingers, he put it to his lips, just intuitively, and he burned his lips, and that's why he couldn't speak. So here we see a beautiful connection to Yeshayahu to Moshe. Now this is very significant because according to the Abarbanel, and not just him, Yeshayahu, other than Moshe, was the greatest of all of the prophets. And here we see a deep connection here, a very deep connection, that he's saying, I also can't speak. I'm of uncircumcised lips. And later Moshe also uses the same language. How can I talk to Pharaoh? I'm of uncircumcised lips. So this is like a tikkun. And the Abarbanel explains that he brings many reasons why Yeshayahu is the greatest of the prophets. First of all, there are more Haftorahs from Yeshayahu than anyone else. Of all of the Haftorahs, his dominate in a certain way, totally dominate. But also, he's the longest of the book of Yeshayahu is the longest of the prophets, and he had the most consolation and the most about Mashiach comes in the book of Yeshayahu. And we're going to see at the end of this Haftorah as well. Then, after his lips are circumcised, he hears a voice saying, who shall I send and who shall go for us? And Yeshayahu says, one second. He says, Vayomer hineni shalacheni. I am here, send me. This is also in a certain way a tikkun for Moshe at the burning bush. God comes and says, I've chosen you to be the Redeemer. And Moshe argues with him for a whole week. Here, and we see that this is not a bad thing necessarily, because we see throughout Jewish history, Jewish leaders acted similarly. We saw Yirmiyahu didn't jump into it. Gideon didn't want it. Shaul questioned, how you're choosing me as king? Queen Esther, everyone was like, I'm not on the level. Here, Yeshayahu, he doesn't say he's on the level, but God calls him and he comes. So this is, again, it's not the others are wrong or negative. It's just showing that Yeshayahu jumped at the opportunity to represent God in the world. And then he understands that there will be a destruction and an exile. And he says to God, how long? When will this happen? And God says it's going to happen because the people are not going to do tshuva, but there will be a spark always left. God assures Yeshayahu, no matter how bad it gets, that he will maintain, he calls it a Zera Kodesh. There'll be a holy seed left. And then it continues with a particular prophecy that God sends to the king of Yehuda, of Judah, who is a very evil king. And yet the northern kingdom made an alliance with Aram, and they were going to attack Yehuda. Because remember, this, unfortunately, as we saw in the book of Judges, there were a number of civil wars in Israel. Now you have two different kingdoms, and they're actually at war with each other. And so Yeshayahu was sent to tell he's an evil king. Achaz, he's an evil king, and yet God wants to preserve Yehuda. And he says, don't be afraid of this alliance. I will save you. Now, there's a contemporary amazing story, because when Yeshayahu comes, he says like this. He says to the king, be calm, don't be afraid. Let your heart not grow faint before these two tails of smoking firebrands, before the burning wrath of Rezin and Aram. These are the name of the kings that were going to attack Yehuda. So he says, don't be afraid. And he calls these two enemies two tails of smoking firebrands. Now, approximately, I'm just guessing now, approximately 30 years ago, in the week that we read this Haftorah, we were at war with Lebanon. And Aram is also from the north. It's not Lebanon per se, it's from the north and the northern kingdom. During this week, there were two helicopters that collided with each other on their way to Lebanon. And approximately 73 soldiers were killed. It was one of the worst tragedies in modern Israel history, because it wasn't that it was shot down by the enemy. It's just the two helicopters. It was a very, very cloudy, stormy day, and they crashed, and they fell in a place called Shar Yeshuv. Now, when God comes to Yeshayahu, he says, take one of your sons, Shar Yeshuv. That was the name of his son. Shar Yeshuv means the remnant will do tshuva. Up by the northern border, there is a yeshuv, a settlement called Shar Yeshuv, named after the son of Yeshayahu. And that's where the helicopters fell. And I remember this. It was, and actually, if you come to Israel, there's a beautiful memorial for, I think it's 73. I could be wrong. And they put up these 72 huge stones in a circle with water running around in the very place where the helicopters crashed. And I remember when people either before Shabbat or on Shabbat were reading the Haftorah, went, oh my gosh, these two firebrands, don't be afraid. In other words, don't give up. Don't give up because of these two firebrands. And it was the tails of the helicopters that hit each other and crashed. And so people, I remember this to this day. People were like, "Oh my gosh, this is what's called living with the times." What the Alter Rebbe said: look into the Torah portion. Here's the Haftorah, and you'll see what's happening in the world. I want to end with the end of the Haftorah. The end of the Haftorah is one of the many, many prophecies of Isaiah about a redeemer and of consolation. Now remember, the king who he's talking to is an evil king. And he says like this, I'll read it in English. He says, "For a child has been born to us, a son has been given to us, and the authority will rest on his shoulders. He who is wondrous advisor, mighty God, eternal Father, shall give him the name Prince of Peace. To him who will be great in authority and have peace without limit upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it and sustain it through justice and righteousness from now to eternity. The zealousness of Hashem, Master of legions, will accomplish this." So in Hebrew, this is very, very influential because part of it, it's in one of the Zmirot that we sing on Shabbos day, has these words. And it's coming right from here. And the words are Pele Yoetz El Gibor Avi Ad Sar Shalom. That's how this song ends, with this vision of Mashiach. But what's interesting, there are two things here that I have to point out, where it says that he will bring peace without limit. So the word is lemarbeh, from the word harbeh, a lot. He will bring like lots of peace. He'll bring peace without limit. There's something unique about this word because the mem in this word is a final mem. It's the only place in the entire Tanakh where there is a final letter in the middle of a word, where it says "Lemarbeh hamisra u'lashalom ein kates." So it's brought down that here we're talking about, because he says he will bring eternal peace for all time. So this is obviously talking about Mashiach, talking about when Mashiach comes, there will be peace. And he's called the Prince of Peace, Sar Shalom. Now, what's interesting here, though, is, and I mentioned this before, that when we read the words of the prophets, they're being granted by God visions of the future in the present. They don't have to happen. We've learned this a number of times. All of the, we'll call negative prophecies, do not have to happen, but only if Israel doesn't change their ways. Then they're like warnings that become reality. All of the positive prophecies, we're told, will absolutely happen. Now, one of the things I've mentioned is that when you read the books of the prophets, you'll notice they weave through past, present, and future almost seamlessly. They could be talking about the present. The next verse is about the future. They revert back to the past and then back to the present. So you have to read the words of the prophets in a very, you have to really understand the flow that's running through their words. So what I just read in English, who is the son of this evil king, Achaz, was Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu was one of the most righteous of all of the kings. And the Gemara said he was on the level to be Mashiach. But he didn't sing song. After God made an incredible miracle and saved all of Israel, Sennacherib had already taken the 10 tribes into exile. Now he was going after this kingdom of Yehuda. He had Jerusalem surrounded, and it looked like the end. And God made a miracle. They woke up the next morning. All the soldiers of Sennacherib were dead. There was some plague, poisoning, miracle. To this day, we don't know exactly, but he saved Yehuda. And we're told that Chizkiyahu was such a high neshama. And the way that his father was an idol worshiper and did terrible things. But he changed everything. And during his reign, things were like Mashiach is coming. So here, some of the commentaries say he's talking about Chizkiyahu here. He saw the potential of Chizkiyahu, but he's also talking about in the future. So here we have an example. He's talking in the present, but he says a child will be born to us. So he's talking on, again, the prophecies are possibilities. But here's a good prophecy, so it has to happen. And it could have happened with Chizkiyahu. That's what the sages say. He could have been Mashiach. He could have been Mashiach. But either he just barely wasn't on the level or his generation wasn't on the level. So the same prophecy will be fulfilled through Mashiach. May we see it soon and in our days.